Greetings, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. You know, I used to think that if you brought up my name or Kabam Mike's name, it would be the most controversial, highly contested, get people out of their bodies and have the keyboard warriors just go crazy. Given that's still the case. But the two-word phrase that I have learned has brought so many people together against it is true focus. In my interview with Kabam Broccoli, he did acknowledge that he thought Kabam regretted how OP specifically Ghost and Quake were, and that they were not designed to clear so many nodes and handle so much BS. But Kabam also knows that if they directly nerfed Quake or Ghost, they would be upsetting their player base like, well, patch 12.0 did. And so, instead of touching those champions directly, they have figured out a way to touch them indirectly by applying more and more true focus boss fights or maybe nodes in, say, Alliance War. And traditionally, we have seen players that with Quake and Ghost could perfectly, especially if they've got Rainbow Boost active, go through every path of the most difficult Alliance Quest, Alliance War, Event Quest content with little to no issue, and there are expert players out there. And look, there are two sides to every issue. Some people think True Focus is a gift from God because they don't like that Quake and Ghost are so powerful. I will say, though, sometimes from those players that I hear them say this is a good thing, the question I'll ask is, well, are you any good with them? And usually the answer is, nope, I don't even have them. So there might be some jealousy involved, too, where it's like, look, I'm not really good with these champions, so nobody should be good with those champions. Now, again, let me clarify. True Focus is not every single fight that we face, but it is becoming a active trend with new content. So much so that there have been at least 5 or 6 forum posts, including the latest one by my man Brian Shadowstrike, sent to me about True Focus. And Kabam has finally needed to address this, and that's what brings us to this forum post today. But Rillian says, another vote for clarification from Kabam. Is True Focus intended to sunset? Sunset's a really creative way to me to say kill. Sunset Quake and Ghost, or target all evade champs. Now, this is another thing Kabam Broccoli touched on. The problem with sunsetting Quake and Ghost is that you end up sunsetting a lot of champions like, say, Wasp, that you didn't want to. And so that's also part of the problem with the way that these champions were designed, is that if you want to cancel evade, that actually cancels out a lot more champions than just the 2 most OP ones that we're referring to. Is it intended to be ubiquitous in future in-game content? If the aim is to sunset Quake and Ghost, will you revisit the design of this node so that it doesn't hamstring weaker evaders? Again, really a legitimate question and a concern that Kabam has behind the scenes. Again, Kabam Broccoli was very open and honest, answered all tough questions that were asked by the top members of the community on my community page, and this was a legitimate concern behind the scenes. There's no easy way to nerf with the node Ghost and Quake without also nerfing the other evade champs. And that stinks, because let's just say there are a lot of unintended consequences for anchoring people, especially people that use, like I said, somebody like Wasp. So here is everyone's favorite Kabam Mike with a comment. Hey all, sorry for the silence on this one. We've read a lot of feedback on True Focus and are interested to hear a lot more. It's a fair comment. There's no statement to make because, like all content, True Focus will be in some places and not in others. True Focus is not a sign that Ghost and Quake and other evade mischampions are no longer going to be useful. And that's partially because True Focus is in some, say, Cavalier Event Quest boss fights on some Alliance War nodes, etc. But this is a change from not having to worry about it unless you're fighting like a true strike champion, like, say, I don't know, Heimdall. Like all content, we'll be using it selectively and for different purposes. It is bad timing that we just introduced it in Alliance War. and then Summer of Pain, and now the Shang-Chi. I like saying CQC challenge because that sounds like a prescription drug to me. In Alliance War, this was to shake up the meta of the champions being used, which is a really fancy way of saying we lost way too many units because nobody ever could get hit, and if you play Quake and Ghost perfectly, you never have to use potions or revives or units. This is also a direct correlation to so many people who've reached out to me to say, Prof, I've got an alliance mates, been playing 5 or 6 years, they dominate with Quake and Ghost, put all the resources into them, even though Quake was, of course, a 5-star because there was no 6-star Quake currently. And now that there are these new changes, they're just kind of done. So this has actually been a sign for some very long veteran players and high spenders to say, peace. But that's probably maybe a minority. I don't know. I just go off of what people tell me. And you never know if direct feedback correlates to a small percentage of the community or a larger one that is represented by a small sample size. CQC challenge is meant to be about close quarters combat, and we didn't want the answer to it to be miss or evade. Again, that's a very politically correct, safe way of saying we wanted people to have to spend units. There's a lot of content back to back, but we have spoken to the team and we are aware of the sentiment here and are going to make an effort to be more purposeful with its use moving forward. You should not expect to see it on all difficult content going forward, which means it is here to stay. True focus is here to stay. And again, some people hear that and they go, good. I think that's a positive evolution for the game. But there are other people who say, peace, deuces, I'm out. Some feedback. Thanks for the clarity on this for me personally. That's answered my main concern at least, so Mald's happy. Bitter Steel. Thanks for the response, Mike. It's good to see it won't be here in every content. Can you give any indication to how prominent it will be in these coming events, say the next 10 events? I feel like, I don't know, it might be a bit of an unreasonable request to say 10 events. They also do like to have some surprise in it, so I don't know, bud. I don't know if that's exactly a reasonable request, but hey, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, as my kindergarten poster said on the wall. Ebony Coleslaw chimed in. I'm hoping that this just means they'll tone it back and look to include other answers as well. Yeah, I mean, I think that the pattern, especially in like Cavalier Event Quest difficulty, is let's say there's 4 of the top final bosses. 1 of the 4 will have true focus. What I really do appreciate about the preview button is that if you plan ahead on those fights, you can investigate whether or not you can bring in those champions. I used to not do that, which for the record is not on Kabam, it was on me. And then I'd try to use Quake and I'd die in 5 seconds and I'd be like, oh, I just wasted a roster spot. But again, I could have gone in and investigated. I just chose not to read because I teach reading, which makes 0 sense. Cilio. You lost me when you said the CQC challenge is meant to be about close quarters combat. It also makes me sound like reading something like a double quarter pounder at McDonald's. And you didn't want the answer to be miss or evade. Do you mind sharing what that answer is? Because you're punishing players for using miss or evade based champs, and there's no benefit from being up close and personal with the challenge. In fact, you're punished staying too close to the opponent because of invade, but you're also punished for being far away as a result of close encounters. You guys did a poor job with this particular challenge, and True Focus being a focal point when Summer of Pain was just finished. Well, they would disagree because, they are in the unique position of trying to make money. And I bet that you can't be too far and you can't be too close is a nice recipe for, especially when you can't quit out if you want the rewards, which weren't very good. You're going to be using some units. You're going to be using some potions. You're going to be using some revives. Just get used to it. And then still, I don't like the idea of a node that counters both miss and evade. It doesn't mean it's not creative design. So I expect to see it less frequently because that's a lot of champs to render useless or less useful. True Strike node deals with evade. I'm not sure if there's one that counters miss. If there isn't, you should, one way, instead of having both True Focus, you can customize individual fights. Ones you want to shut down or evade miss champs, just a thought. And I find it hard to believe True Focus wasn't targeted at Quake and Ghost. Do you have some OP Quake-like Are Quake and Ghost like characters in the pipeline? Well, we know that we have a new phasing champion, Kitty Pryde. I'm not saying that's exactly like Quake and Ghost, but it is a phase. Kabam is being emotional. They're going through a phase. All right, last one. Stevie Man Wonder. Vigilance counters miss. I don't know if there's a node for that, though. All right, we could go on, and this is a longer video than usual because I wanted to read some feedback and not just read the post. I think the community's split on this, and I'm not going to try to pretend to tell you what to think, because if I'm doing my job on my channel best, and I'm not saying I always do, but I try to, I don't tell you what to think. I just tell you what people are saying, and hopefully give you a couple different perspectives. When you teach journalism, it's not about indoctrinating people. It's about discussing perspectives and leaving it up to the individual to determine for themselves where they want to lie their perspective on. I would love to look at all perspectives of this True Focus issue, and so I look forward to reading the comments on this one. It's certainly a divisive topic, and now that it's here to stay, at least for some content, this is something we've just got to face going forward, because we got to take our medicine and know that in these circumstances, Ghost and Quake are not the champions we expect them to be on these nodes.